You're listening to the St John's Diamond Creek podcast. This episode presented by Associate Minister Joel Snibson.
Psalm 100. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving, and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name, for the Lord is good, and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
On ABC iView, a strange story tells the backstory to the pub choir phenomenon. Astrid Jorgensen grew up with the love of music, yet her journey of finding her calling was one of trial and error. Her confidence was crushed by her violin teacher, yet she hit her stride when she trialled the concept of the pub choir, beginning in a small Brisbane bar. She taught rowdy crowds of ordinary, half-drunk people at the local to sing a 3-part harmony. Despite setbacks, COVID, pub choir blew up beyond her wildest imagination, packing out concert halls, gigs around the world, ordinary people wanting to pay money to join with others to exuberantly sing. The success of pub choir craze taps into something profound about humanity. Everyone has this inbuilt desire to join others to praise. As the church, we gather each week to do this. Yet as we've been relegated to the periphery of society, Astrid's pub choir has tapped into this felt need to join others and exuberantly sing. Well, today we begin our short series called The Thankful Life, and in Psalm 100 it calls God's people to come and praise with exuberance and joy. Look, we tend to be individualistic in our worship. Pub choir is about ordinary people singing for the enjoyment and benefits of others. And as the voices harmonise in unison, there's a horizontal benefit that can't be experienced in singing in the shower. In verse 3, notice the us and we. This is a corporate song of praise. And more than pub choir, the Christian song of praise is also for others. It involves the vertical magnifying of the Lord upwards, but also the horizontal benefit of others in whom we share relationship. Each week we corporately gather to mutually encourage each other to be people of praise. And our praise is also evangelistic. Look to verse 1. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Our praise is an invitation for the whole world to join our exuberant praise and joy in Jesus. I've seen how our praise is missional. Our team leads services at the nursing homes, and I've seen exuberant praise build as new residents, as intrigued staff, as visiting family members literally get caught up joining our choir and our song. Well, Psalm 100 is made up of 2 halves with a repeated pattern. In verses 1 and 2, then verse 4, there's a first line calling us to God's presence with exuberance and joy. These calls come, enter, are in the imperative, let's do this. Yet in verses 3 then 5, we have the why of the exuberant praise, which leads to our first point. We praise because the Lord is worthy. What prevents our exuberant praise? Well, sometimes life sucks. Look, God is always worthy of our praise. However, in his goodness, in our times of suffering, God provides us with psalms of lament. So today, if you are suffering, if you're going through something painful, he doesn't ask you to force or fake exuberance. He invites us to express trust by bringing all your pain and sorrow, questions, even anger to God. Yet almost all of the Psalms of lament end with a note of praise, a glimmer of joy. But even when we're not suffering, often our joy is determined by life circumstances in the moment. This can reveal how something other than God is the object of our joy. We'll see how our heart's affections are so easily redirected to worship idols. A writer says that our praise is not natural to our selfishness. So there's a tension here. While we have this innate desire to sing with others, yet the problem of selfishness and sin squashes and redirects our praise from the only one who's worthy of it. Look, I think pub choir is great. Yet without the rightful object of praise, it's singing a beautiful song going nowhere. We praise because the Lord is worthy for who he is. The psalm begins with a shout, and this is how one would appropriately enter the presence of a king. 4 times the psalmist refers to the Lord. It's a royal title, and in verse 3 we see more of his identity. Know that the Lord is God. The Lord is the Hebrew word Yahweh, the God of the Bible, who alone is King of the whole world, who created the world. So he is worthy of glory and exuberant praise from the nations. The Lord is worthy because he is King. We also see the Lord is worthy because of our special relationship. The word Lord identifies the covenant relationship between the king and his people Israel. In short, the Lord made a binding promise to the smallest, unimpressive, undeserving people of Israel, saying, "You are mine, I will be faithful to you no matter what." And in verse 3, read verse 3 with me. "It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture." The language speaks to identity belonging to him within this special relationship. Likewise, we exuberantly praise because in Jesus, our identity now belongs to him. It's about who we now are in this relationship. You know how some couples might have pet names and you might think, "Oh, cringe, please stop." Yet these names are exclusively just for the couple. Likewise, in verse 3, this sheep metaphor was exclusive couple language only to be used to describe this covenant relationship. And in the New Testament, in John 10, Jesus picks up on this exclusive relationship, calling himself the Good Shepherd. Friends, we are made to praise the Lord alone. Yet so often our sin squashes and redirects our delight to idols. We believe things lesser than God will truly satisfy us, things that we become attached to for earthly pleasure, accomplishment, maybe relationships, and these things will always let us down. So often we get distracted from the reality that the Lord alone is worthy of our praise. We forget our identity, who we are, who we belong to within our special relationship. Well, in verse 5, we continue to see the Lord is worthy because of who he is. For the Lord is good and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. Well, the Lord is worthy because of his loving presence with us. We're reminded of the Lord's character here, his goodness, his moral perfection in all ways, yet also how he relates to us, his steadfast love within this covenant relationship. This is an invitation to personally experience the Lord's goodness. In every sphere of life, in every situation, when we don't feel it, when we ignore him, God is always and completely good. Psalm 34:8, taste and see the Lord is good. Furthermore, his love is the word hesed, speaking to his unfailing, steadfast love. Just imagine you met a couple, right? And there was one partner who is attentive, puts in 100% effort, is loving, completely faithful, Meanwhile, their partner makes little effort, takes them for granted, even cheats on them, you would think, what are you doing? Run. Well, this was exactly the dynamic within this covenant relationship. When God's people went in exile, after exile, in times of trouble and distress, they were the unappreciative partner. They were undeserving, they were faithless. Yet remarkably in verse 5, we see the Lord's enduring faithfulness, keeping all of his promises. We can exuberantly praise because his loving presence is with us forever, enduring through every season, throughout every generation. Just consider your life, the Lord's track record of faithfulness to you. When others aren't, he is faithfully there. In our uncertain moments and times of distress, he's faithfully there. In our rebellious moments, when our hearts have wandered, when our praise have been redirected elsewhere, he's faithfully there. And he'll continue to be, so our future is secure. But ultimately, the Lord is worthy of our praise because of his character was demonstrated in what he had done in saving God's people from Egypt. Likewise, friends, we exuberantly praise Jesus for who he is, our God and King, and despite our unworthiness, through Jesus, God offers us this covenant relationship. He gives us this new identity that desires to praise him. Through Jesus, God's loving and faithful presence is forever with us by his Spirit. And we have certainty of this because of what Jesus has done. Through his life and death and resurrection, he has saved us from our sinful lives that tends to squash and redirect his rightful praise elsewhere. Friends, our praise redirects our hearts and our vision to the Lord who is exclusively worthy. Our praise magnifies the Lord's greatness, not like a telescope that makes small things bigger to us, but like a telescope looking up at the galaxies and the stars and the planets. Our praise, like a telescope, takes what's enormous and makes it a little bigger in our vision. So our praise gives us a clearer vision of who Jesus is and what he's done, but also who we are and our true identity within this special relationship, now made to be worshippers. I've shown you this image before, but our praise in the Lord is like a leaking tank. As we head out and live and serve in the world, sin in us and temptations around us causes our vision of who God is and what he's done and our identity to leak out. And our tank is only filled again by both corporate and individual praise. We exuberantly praise because he's worthy. And this leads to my second point. We praise with exuberant emotion. So with pub choir, we've seen this inward desire to exuberantly sing alongside others. Also, C.S. Lewis describes our ability to joyfully praise as inner health made audible. Look, some of you are logical truth people, and others of you are emotionally expressive people. Some of you nodded on in agreement when I said that praise is grounded on truth of who the Lord is and what he's done. Yet Psalm 100 is also about exuberant, joyful praise. Others of you may feel more than a pub choir, if this relationship is our identity, it must be personally and emotionally experienced. Well, for the first group, talk of emotions might make you nervous. Well, Psalm 100 is both about the object of praise and our experience of praise. This is an invitation to express great emotion and joy and overflowing gratitude. Look to verse 2, with gladness, joyful songs. Verse 4, with songs of thanksgiving, praise. Much exuberance here. Like the pub choir, After a few too many drinks, this praise is growing and building throughout the psalm. And while our exuberant praise is grounded in the Lord being worthy, yet this reality must reach each part of us. See, the point of theology, the truth about God, always must lead to doxology, worship and wonder and praise of God. Worship is both in spirit and in truth. Both are important. Look to verse 3. We're commanded to know the Lord is God. This knowledge within our relationship ought to deeply affect every part of us, our intellect, our emotions, us socially, physically, our affections. Whether we admit it or not, God has made us all as emotional beings. And even if you pride yourself as someone who's purely guided by logic and reason, I'll tell you, your logic and reason is often from your emotional reactions. As people, we're often like an iceberg, and we focus on the 20% above the surface, while the 80% is under the water. And I say this because if we don't let our relationship with Jesus to touch the stuff below, including our emotions below the surface, it will prevent this wholehearted praise that we're created for. In the book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, the author Peter Scazzero argues that emotional immaturity hinders our spiritual growth, our ability to find joy in the Lord. He identifies 10 symptoms that prevent our emotionally healthy relationship with God, and the young adults will reflect on this on the retreat weekend. We've already considered the illusion of idols, redirecting our praise and delight from the Lord to other things. And another symptom is ignoring our emotions like anger and sadness and fear. Look, older generations were raised to get on with it mindset. Likewise, as Christians, we're taught that our feelings are unreliable and can't be trusted. Jeremiah 17:9 says how our hearts are deceitful. We shouldn't be ruled by our emotions or feelings. However, we can swing too far the other way and repress difficult emotions like anger, sadness, and see them to be as feared or avoided. We can even find scriptures justifying emotions like fear and anxiety to indicate somehow we're outside the will of God or something spiritually wrong with us. Look, our emotional responses can be sinful. However, if our response is sucking it up, repressing it, putting on fake confidence and hoping emotions below the surface will go away, we won't grow and mature in Jesus and encounter his freedom, exuberant joy the psalmist invites us to here. We're made in the image of a relational God who in love seeks our special relationship to transform those deeper parts of us at the bottom of the iceberg. If our praise is inner health made audible, let's not ignore the 80% below the surface. Look, our praise is corporate. We need the help of others like friends at life group, even a counselor. What emotions do you need to face to free you for exuberant praise? And while this relationship, God's loving presence, is with us in every moment, in verses 2 and 4, we have this invitation to joyfully come and enter God's presence. We don't have to, we get to step into his presence. There's authentic joy in knowing in this relationship, the Lord seeks to draw close and meet us and be with us. Let's not be the unfaithful partner taking this invitation for granted. In your journey, have you known this exuberant joy in knowing Jesus? Not presuming on the faith of your parents or friends here or the great community or social life we enjoy here. So we can intellectually know about God and what he's done and the need for right relationship with God. But have you personally experienced being humbled by the weight of your sin? Yet also the wonder of God's goodness and love and offer a relationship through Jesus. Have you experienced the joy of his new identity within this special relationship? He offers you relationship today. Joy can be found with Jesus. Take it up. If you know Jesus, are you taking the opportunity to exuberantly bring your whole selves to this loving relationship every day? I think whether you're a teenager or a senior, we're all too busy, overscheduled, frantic, constantly tired and time poor. Even when it comes to our faith, so often we make it about doing, serving, caring, doing for God rather than being with God. So easily our strength becomes our weakness and we lose sight of the relational God who just wants to enjoy time with us. Maybe you're not busy but bored and distracted. Do we need to slow down or just put the phone down and get offline? This praise that's grounded in truth and affects our emotions spends time looking through the telescope, focusing up on who God is and what He's done to then transform what's below the surface. Practically, in our quiet times, do we go beyond talking at God, rattling off our shopping list of prayer needs? Instead, are we getting comfortable in this two-way relationship, starting to listen to God, simply sitting, being, enjoying the loving presence of the Lord? In Psalm 100, exuberant joy builds and grows. Is that true for our individual relationship with God? I encourage us all to practice joyful exuberance this week. Make time to prayerfully write down one thing you are thankful for each day. Do this with a partner or friend. Do this with a Bible open, so even if your circumstances suck, you can see something of God's character and what He's done to give you inspiration. In this special relationship, we always have something to be exuberantly thankful about. May we keep on singing of our worthy God, of who He is and what He's done and who we are. And let's sing with exuberant joy, praise that touches our whole self, our emotions below the surface. See, in our pub choir, Jesus is the conductor and the song leader of His people. Behind Him stands a huge choir, us the church, who sings throughout every generation. This choir exuberantly sings the Psalms of Jesus, led by Jesus, taught by Jesus. Will you be part of this choir? What will it take for you to join in? Do you need to better understand the truth of the song of who our God is and what He's done and how He saves? Do you need to personally feel the emotions and exuberance as your praise is redirected to our worthy God and King? Do you need to experience joining in alongside others, adding your voice to the harmony? Come, enter, join in. Amen.
Thanks for joining us. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, you can do so in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Just search for St. John's, Diamond Creek.